State, but my goodness, today the hammer, Tennessee and also Virginia with a lawsuit against the NCAA.
This is becoming more common than bowl games when it comes to college athletics. Is the NCAA getting sued? And when you started to see this flurry of NIL things, and it's kind of confusing as to what the actual rules are and how easy or hard they are to follow in the landscape of things. This was inevitable, and with antitrust, you were just waiting for somebody to jump on board with that. So now this is another antitrust situation they have. It feels to me like the U.S. government is telling the NCAA, look, we don't want to have to make you do anything. But we're going to, and you need to figure this out on your own. But that is a easier thing to say than do, clearly, because it's just going to get messier and messier and messier as things go on.
Yeah, I mean, another legal story. Hooray. I know why I got in the sports business, was to talk about courtrooms and lawsuits all of the time. And, I'm just half joking. I mean, it's part of the deal. And we've had law, filter into various aspects of sports at different times, whether it's contract disputes or actual NCAA penalties back when they could really enforce those types of things. And there's various avenues you go down when it comes to the legal profession and sports. But, I mean, the amount of time we spent talking about court cases and lawsuits and things of that nature with this one organization now for the last several years has just become so tiresome, and I don't know where it stops, and I don't know when's the last lawsuit to finally just break the bow of the ship and sink this thing, because they've got a lot on their plate, already did before the year 2024 started, and now here's another heaping pile of stuff to deal with for the NCAA, and can't blame anybody but themselves, really. Still surprised by just the amount of ways they've been able to pile up files on their desk and seemingly not clear any of them unless they've lost yet another court case, and then you move on to the next one. But I think Ross Dellinger had a list of all of the different lawsuits they're facing right now, and it's just like, what are we doing here? When does this end? How does this end? And how quickly can it come to an end so that the NCAA or whatever entity is going to be ruling over said schools, whatever that organization looks like, whatever that separation of schools looks like, whether it's the whole meal deal that you've got right now or whether it's the eventual break-off that people speculate about or wonder about, I don't know, but this just feels like more and more weight on the shoulders of a group that was already trying to hold up a lot of weight. So, yeah, I mean, here's the states of Tennessee and Virginia, and that didn't take long after the news yesterday, and I guess we will continue on down this path of lawsuits and courtroom cases and see what eventually that turns out to be. But, yeah, it's another lawsuit against the NCAA. Imagine that.
Here's from Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee. The University of Tennessee has been nothing but forthcoming with the NCAA. I thank Chancellor Donde Plowman was for taking a stand on behalf of all the universities and student athletes. It's time for the NCAA to establish clear rules in the interest of student athletes rather than try to retroactively enforce ever-changing name, image, and likeness guidance. Virginia also is also a part of this. We will hear, I believe, on Friday afternoon, don't know the time yet, but the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee will join our show on Friday.
He makes a good point. And it's rare that politicians do that nowadays, but he does make a good point on retroactively enforcing guidelines in ever-changing rules. That's what got them in trouble in the eligibility case. That was one of the things that happened to them there. It's what's going to hurt them here is that you make rules, you change them, they're changing all the time. Well, it wasn't when he broke the rule, it was, 2 weeks before we announced this, so we're going to punish him for it. All these different things. And it's just a mess. And the NCAA can't do anything to keep itself out of court. And that should be the goal. The goal should be, let's really sit down here and do this. But the problem is, and we had it illustrated by Bob Thompson in that tweet last week, is nobody really in charge of this knows enough about it to fix it. And there's too many people who are university presidents, who are the ones who were in charge of the, running the NCAA, like of agreeing to those rules, that really know anything about sports. And that's not bad in a normal sense of like, that's not their total job, but like now it really needs to be, because if this is going to be a for-profit industry like it's now is, you need people who have expertise in all these realms, and there's just too many people with too many different mission statements and too many different ideas about what this should be to make this go smoothly.
Yeah, I just think it's all just kind of stupid at this point. I mean, it really is. And once every state started to kind of break off, or at some point you saw a lot of states breaking off and define the original intent and saying, no, like we're going to go state by state because they wanted their advantage or they felt it was unlawful or whatever the case may have been of why your state pursued going against what the NCAA originally wanted NIL to be. We know that some of it was recruiting advantage because a lot of it was in the Southeast or feeling like it wasn't a lawful thing to do, whatever the case may be. That's when it just, this state's got this law and this state's got this law and this state's got this law. Well, there's enough confusion for you, and now it's only gotten more confusing. And I'm frankly just, like everybody else, waiting for something else to move on to. But here's this story that rears its head constantly because it never changes. It just continues to pile up on their plate more and more and more evidence that their way of doing things is not going to be the way that things are going to work moving forward. I'm not claiming the death of the NCAA, but God, I'm begging them to pivot to some other type of outcome because your way is not working and it's not going to be the way moving forward. Like the idea that, and I don't even know if folks in the NCAA have it in their head that it will be, but the idea that this is what it used to be is just, it's not, and it never will be again. Maybe if there is the great split and you're suddenly ruling over North Dakota State and that's like one of your, premier schools, but you're not dealing with Tennessee or with Virginia or with Michigan or Ohio State. Maybe that's the way. I don't know. I would just like to get there at some point soon because the every other month of lawsuit against the NCAA challenging their rules is just, I mean, it's got to end at some point, right?
Can I add this to what you're saying? I 100% agree with you. It's sickening how stupid they are and how backwards they are and how dumb they are that they feel like they can slow play this because it almost just seems like
that's what they've done the entire time.
Yes, it's like quicksand. It's like they're in quicksand, except they're not trying to fight out of it. They're just sinking. They're not doing anything. Well, they're just throwing stuff out to whatever hits that particular topic at that time.
Well, it feels like, and again, I'm no legal expert, and that's why I hesitate even talking about things like this too much. I just know the general basics of it all and don't know the ins and outs of the lawsuits and the process and all of that. I don't pretend to know that. But, yeah, I mean, that's basically what they did, was it not, when it came to NIL in the first place? Let's drag our feet until we're forced to make a decision, and then we'll respond to it. But we won't prepare ourselves for that event that's inevitable, but we'll respond when that time comes. And so that's what they did, and then NIL hit, and they had nothing to stand on. Oh, God, didn't see this coming. Really? Everybody saw it coming, and you guys just figured you'd get your way again, or that somebody like Superman would swoop in with his cape and protect you, and that it would all go away. And it's just naive. I guess that's the word that comes to mind. And now it feels like with this of, what's the NCAA's response? Well, we really need federal legislation. I mean, gosh, dang, how long have we been hearing that now? For like 3 years? And guess what's not happened? Any of what they've been wishing for, and nor has it even come close. And I know Charlie Baker's around politicking and doing what he can, but guys, maybe we just need to come to the realization that that's not going to work. And so start working on what will. And that's what everybody in every column I've read, and I know there's some element of higher powers that are pushing certain article ideas forward and certain talking points and everything, but I do think there is a lot of discussion right now about the obvious, and that's why you're hearing more and more momentum about the future and what that's going to look like, because I think everybody except the NCAA's kind of realize, like, you're probably not going to get what you want, so why don't you start working on what that is going to look like when you inevitably don't get what you want, which is Superman flying in and saving the day and protecting amateurism and doing all of those things. So unless they've got a Hail Mary on the way, I just feel like we're going to keep doing this until they finally break and fall into the depths of the ocean, basically.
Well, and the federal government has shown no interest holistically in doing it. It's just different, like, people firing off salvos to answer the question that were thrown at them that day, that what's going to make, their constituency feel better. So if you're, a senator from Texas, then you're going to say things that are going to be, that people in Texas are going to be like, well, okay, well, he gets it or whatever. And that's all it's going to matter. But that nothing going to come from it. And here the thing is, here's the guidance the federal government has told you you have to, which I don't think they've understood yet. It's the Constitution. That's what they fail to understand. They've become so antiquated with the scholarship is the full payment thing that, no, you cannot make a deal with somebody that you own their name because they're going to school. Like, that's what slowed them down. Like, if you start with what are the basic rights that you have as an American and then build out of there and then just put some sort of, collectively bargain agreement in place of here's what's legal and not within the system, then that works better than going, well, we think it's different. Students should be treated differently. Well, if they're 18 and legal adults and can vote and join the army and buy cigarettes, then maybe, just maybe, they should be able to have some money.
I know Allstott and all of the other things that have occurred, Alston, and all the other things that have occurred with the NCAA lawsuits, EA Sports, whatever, all of that, O'Bannon. But I've been told I'm wrong on this. If back in 1985, when this was not even a part of anyone's thought process, or 1995, had the NCAA said, guys, this tidal wave is coming. If they could have come up with some guidelines then, they still might have been sued and still might be where we are. But could they not have at least delayed this another decade by saying, here's what we're going to do to structure student athletes. Yes, they can get paid based on their value. They can also get paid to come to a school above and beyond the scholarship and all the other things they get. Would that have delayed anything, or would that have still?
It might have eliminated. Like, they might have still gotten sued in the structure of it, right? And that, like, maybe their structure wasn't. But if they had done that, then at least you've opened up the possibility for partnership in that. I'll tell you, where I really think about it, the first time, and I was only 12, but the first time I ever heard it was with Chris Webber, and when he was at Michigan. He made a stink about it. And instead of treating Chris Webber like he was an adult with an opinion that was valid, they just brushed it off. And then when that happened, it's only going to get worse as the next person who sees something wrong with this comes along, and next and next and next. And then you get to, say, a situation like Johnny Manziel, where he was like, I don't give a crap what the rules are. I'm going to do what I want to do. All those number 2 jerseys are me.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we are. But, Craig, I also 100%, not that we haven't tried, that we've not ourselves aligned or learned more and more about sports law. Dan Lust is going to join us either tomorrow or Friday to give us his input, too, on what's going on. So, Garrett, let's skip